So here's our question for today. What is the old industry habit that is quietly draining our clients? And how do we help them walk away from it? Good old habits.
Habits are tough to break. They Once they're entrenched, they're hard to undo. Depending on which industry you're talking about. For example, if we're talking about the restoration industry, which is in place to return buildings back to original condition after an event such as a fire or a flood or a vehicle impact or something to that effect. That industry has run the same way for more than 40 years, and we are still doing the exact same things we did 40 years ago. There's changes in technology, there's changes in automation, there is new equipment out there that can streamline this process, help cost manage. There's better training for people that are being sent out into the field that, if there has been a flood, for example, that they actually know how to moisture map and monitor so that they can be far more proactive and cut down on the extent of damages and secondary damages because of not doing things properly on the front end. We don't always have to rip and tear things out. There are ways that we can salvage parts of buildings rather than filling up our landfills with unnecessary materials that could have been saved. And again, part of it is understanding what you're dealing with. Part of it is training. Part of it is adopting new equipment and new technologies on job sites to help manage and reduce labor, waste, and overall expenses and turn around projects faster. After Kalina's flood and fire in her house, the extra extent of damage that happened, a certain portion of that can be attributed to the inactions on the front end of that project. And that we see a lot of. There are things that are very time sensitive that get dismissed, and other things that are not time sensitive that get prioritized. Again, mold starts growing on building materials in 1 to 2 days. But the
Oh,
primary focus seems to be on this irrelevant part of the restoration process when really we should be looking at the hazardous materials and understanding what and where mold can grow within our building and try and minimize that potential risk. And the same type of issue applies in property management when it comes to commercial and multifamily projects. Um, Same philosophy applies. We've always done it this way. We talk post-COVID or during COVID about changing ventilation systems and upgrading filtration, but essentially once COVID was done, everyone went back to this is the filter we've always used in our system. This is how we do our maintenance. This is how we have always done it. And the maintenance programs they reverted back to exactly what they were historically. So what ends up happening is you get systematic changes based on an event, such as COVID, and then we just settle right back into the old way of doing things. Um,
yeah.
and then with economics that start coming into play, then corners get cut because there's just not enough maintenance money anymore. And ventilation systems that are supposed to be cleaned every 2 or 4 or 5 or however many years don't get done. Or the that on property management from office spaces to maximize the square footage. We start throwing more cubicles in and subdividing the space down, adding more offices, but we never adjust the ventilation system. We don't adjust the thermostat locations. There are things that happen repeatedly that make the experience within our buildings less than desirable. And it just repeats itself over and over and over again. And it's frustrating when you literally walk into a building space to do an initial assessment going, let me guess, the complaints are X, Y, and Z. And sure enough, that's exactly what they are because the building's been modified or the maintenance programs are based on 30 and 40-year-old viewpoints, which traditionally was energy management. It was not about air quality and the human experience. It's how do I run this building with the least expenditure? There are still office buildings in all of Canada that the ventilation systems get turned off at 6 o'clock at night and turned back on at 5 or 6 o'clock in the morning to save energy.
Wow. And what
Oh,
what does that do though? Because that's like stopping the lungs, in a sense, the lungs of the building from working at night. Like that has
because
impacts, I'm sure.
the viewpoint was that the traditional office space is only occupied from 8 to 5. So we don't need to be conditioning and doing air exchange when the building's empty. But the workforce has changed. Like buildings aren't empty and unoccupied now during those periods of time. You get swing shifts, you get differing viewpoints of people working different hours. Like
Mhm.
that's just the reality. But a lot of buildings are still running on that mentality, or they put them into what they call economy mode, which again tempers back all the ventilation to a bare minimum. But if I'm the person that's working at 9 o'clock at night, because that's what my shift is, I got the evening shift, I'm now subjected to a less than desirable work environment from an air quality and an overall experience.
Mhm.
But again, it's derived on around energy and cost management. So those are some frustrating things that are still happening. And even in brand new buildings that are just being built and they're well or LEED certified, that's just how the building was built. That doesn't mean that unless they're doing an ongoing maintenance to it and ongoing upkeeping of the systems, that becomes like a one-time certification that becomes a marketing tool. But if you're not maintaining it, it's a one and done. It doesn't matter 2 years from now because the building changes, the dynamics change within the building, and the use changes within the building. Those certifications, if they're done at new construction, they are done with essentially the building empty, and it's not being utilized by the tenants and the occupants, which will change the variables within that building. It's like, oh, it's good, we're certified. It's like, well, yeah, you were at new construction, but now you've added a printing shop and you've added a couple of restaurants and you've added a few other things. So the variables within the building can change. And the there is a tendency to fall back on I'm certified, but there's no ongoing maintenance for it, or there's no ongoing recertifying as well.
Yeah. And there's something to be said about that, right? It's like we love the whole, okay, I got the certification check mark, marketing, but not actually thinking about how a building changes just with time alone. Like, so let's say that we don't change any factors whatsoever, anyone who's gone on vacation and has a home, like we all know that things can happen to the building even if it's not being occupied, right? Naturally, things are happening anyways. Um, like what are some examples? Like, like you need to do certain things before
Yeah.
like you leave the house because
Well,
things
if
are
you go on
constantly happening.
if you go on vacation, if you leave your house for a month, if you go on a 1 month vacation, you expect that when you come home, you're probably going to have to dust,
Hmm.
even though you haven't been there to generate dust.
Yeah.
Things happen.
Yeah. And it's like that
But
article that I shared with you, Dennis, where, they left in a building kind of abandoned for a while after COVID and then mandated return to work, but didn't actually look at the health of the building. And so that's an example of, well, the building was there, it's fine.
yeah,
But what happened to the
it was
building?
assumed that the building was static and nothing changed in the whole time it was unutilized. But things change.
Yeah, lots of things change, even if there's no, I guess, human interference. And then on the flip side, like you said, when humans do a lot of things such as add, modify, what are the ripple effects of that we're not actually considering?
Yeah, and that's very common in old infrastructure, old buildings where it was built this way, and over time we've modified it. Even within your own single family dwelling, people move walls, people change the use of their building, but they don't update how the ventilation system works. They don't clean the ventilation system after a major construction project. They don't do basic things that need to be thought of, and how the occupants are going to interact with that space. I don't really have a whole bunch more.
No, that was great.
Again, it's just kind of one of these things where we're just stuck in this is how we've always done it.
And it goes back to this phrase that I love to share because I dislike it so much is it is what it is. And my pushback to that is, well, it is also what we make it.
Right. Yeah.
Right? What we tend to, what we pay attention to, what we invest in versus, well, it's always been done that way.
Yeah. Yeah. We used to smoke in our cars with the kids in the back seat too, and with no seat belts. Things evolve, things change.
Yes, they do. All right,
And
I'll take a crack at this question now.
okay.
All right. So what is an industry standard? Not a standard, but what is an industry habit? For me, when I think about a lot of like the way that people interact with each other and the cultures of businesses, um, a lot of people assume burnout equals workload. And, I think that's actually a huge thing is now that I'm more on all the social media things, a lot of the platforms, lots of people are talking about burnout, burnout, burnout. But again, it's this thing that do we actually realize what burnout is or what creates it? Like, where is this energy draining to? We talk about it, but we don't actually like look for it. I saw this study the other day that burnout is 50-50. It's about half the actual work, but it's actually about half people. So the relationships, who they work with, team dynamics, how they get along with, the people they report to. So half of the drain is relational, and yet we do not budget for it. So there's a lot of quiet. I mean, the stats uphold it. About, I think I saw the stat, 42% of burnt out workers, only 42% tell their manager. Yeah. And so there's a lot of quiet in this quiet drain of energy of people, that how many people that are burning out and not actually saying anything. And I see this a lot like in smaller businesses because you really see it hit home because there's nowhere to outsource the relational stuff to. Small businesses don't have like their own HR department with with a whole set of staff to deal with the human part of it, right? It's usually like the owner or owner operators. And a lot of the time, you're so busy thinking about cash flow. I get it. I'm thinking about cash flow while I'm brushing my teeth, right? Trying to get the actual logistics of running the business. Um, and for somebody who's not necessarily trained in the relational stuff or comes instinctually to them, that's often the part that gets tossed out first or neglected, right? It's the part that we say, oh yeah, it just kind of happens. But we take that for granted, that relationships and these kinds of things take work. And some of us might have heard, I mean, I've heard it a lot too, is in small organizations, we're family here. And that's sometimes very rarely a good thing. Because I know many of us have dysfunctional families, and it's the most expensive thing to say because it's this assumption that family doesn't get to be tired and they don't get to leave and they work extra because they care. Um, but that leads to burnout, right? And we see that with a lot of the small businesses is they're giving their heart and their soul, but not actually looking at what's costing them. Because if we only look at what's on paper with the bottom line, we're missing a lot of the other quiet drains that are happening um, everywhere else. So, yeah, lots of entrepreneurs, lots of small business owners, uh, high stress,
Yeah.
right?
I think to go along with what you're saying is that most small enterprise and even in the medium size enterprise, pretty much every individual wears a lot of hats, and that can lead to a lot of burnout and a lot of emotional drain that can manifest in so many different ways. And I think, like what you said earlier, that it's not always about the workload of the given task. It's also the relationships within that. We don't always have to like each other. We have to work together,
But
and
it
that
leads
create that.
to the whole reason why why traditional ways of benefits being just a checkbox doesn't work too.
Yeah.
So I have to jump in with that because
Yeah.
Tiffany, it's that's a typical thing is like check, we have benefits, but it's an insurance purchase.
Yeah.
It's like
But
okay, so
if they don't serve
yeah.
the people, then it's a wasted checkbox.
But it literally is a checkbox. Okay, so we have to have we have to have so errors and emissions, we have to have a general commercial policy in place because of this. It's a compliance thing. Oh, we have to have benefits because that's part of payroll and check it's done. And so the result is employees don't know what they have and they don't have access to benefits that serve them and they can't use it to rejuvenate. They can't use it to take care of their families. It's a purchase that didn't make sense because it was just a checkbox. And so then when it's a checkbox, it becomes a cash flow checkbox. So in other words, we need to get the cheapest insurance possible that still has the right titles in it, but they don't actually dig deep to see if it actually meets the needs of the people working. So
Mhm.
that's my beef with traditional
And
ways of doing
that's a
things.
habit. That's like an industry habit, is to
It
seek
is.
out the lowest, cheapest option. And but here's the thing is, Kalina, like flex benefits doesn't have to cost exorbitant amounts of money, right? Like it's not like, oh, I went for the cheaper option
No, but
versus
you actually
flex
have to,
benefits, you can actually get more for your money.
yeah, and you involve people in the conversation and that becomes uncomfortable. So I've said if you don't give a shit about the people that are working for you, then you don't want to do flex. And why is that? Well, you actually have to talk to them. So if you don't want to
No.
talk to them, like, oh my God, like you actually have to. Well, why do we have to? It's like because you have to make them aware of what they have available so that they can adapt the package to what they need. Oh my God, I don't think we have time for that. Well, I'm there to help you with every step of the way. Well, seriously, I don't know if we have time for you to do this with them. And I was like,
Here's,
then it's not the right fit for you.
yeah. And the funny thing I find seeing you work with your benefits clients is all of a sudden you have to make time when the emergency happens, when somebody gets diagnosed with somebody, or there's a workplace incident, or what, or there's so many different things. And so instead of being proactive with time
They're
management, they're being reactive.
all reactive.
Yeah.
And so
And
the
it's
time is
still,
there.
yeah.
It's just whether they're behind the eight ball or ahead of it.
Yeah. So it's like we can't think of the experience we're building as just check boxes and benefits as a product and the work office environment as like just a box that we paid rent and we had to show up in. Right? Like there's I think there has to be more intention in what we're doing and it actually helps businesses get more value for the dollars they're investing,
Mhm.
right? If they start asking different questions and wanting to be involved, because then when we invest in people, you end up having a different experience as an output. So people can work more healthy, they can work harder, in fact, they can work happier, and they actually show up better too. So the results in their favor. Just my 2 cents.
Yeah. See, we even got you to talk today.
Because I got annoyed enough.
That's
That's a
it though.
great.
You're human.
Yeah,
And you're like, I gotta say the thing.
yeah,
All right. Well, thank you for
Well,
such a
it
great
all
chat
leads to
again.
burnout.
yeah,
If you show
yeah,
up in a horrible workplace environment, you get sick. That's the whole reason why we sit together in the same room.
yeah.
People get burned out and they get sick too.
Yeah.
Yeah. And everything affects everything. So we'll end
Yep.
it on that note. And
Okay.